Okay, you're getting part due in part two. All right, so second part of the careers. Second part of the careers, we're going to talk about colorist for quite a bit. It's one of the most important careers in this section, actually in this area in textile development. You're going to talk about technicians and engineers as well. All right, dive on in. And next we have the colorist, and it's exactly what it sounds like, right? So the colorist, when you get to again when you get to textiles class, we do a whole module just on color theory, and you will learn about the Pantone color chart, which is what colors used to determine what the colorways that we talked about earlier, what the color story is going to be for a pattern or for a season. And again, trend forecasters do this as well. They help determine what the colors are going to be for season, and the colorist works with those Pantone colors for that. So that textile colorist just chooses, the color combinations that will be used in creating a textile design. They travel to fashion markets and belong to forecasting organizations to stay on top of current trends and future color trends. And there's a wide variety of industries which these textile colorists are used with. So if you just think about the season that we're in right now. If you walk into Forever 21, or if you walk into Banana Republic, or you walk into Zara, you will see a color story, right? You will see a story, and the story, there may be several different stories happening in the store at the same time. You will also see a pattern story, so you will see, the same types of patterns repeating themselves over and over again. So that's what the textile colorists, what they do. They're responsible, for um, working with textile designers and stylists, and working with trend forecasters to um, direct images into visions. So those are some of the tasks that this textile colorist does. And they work, like I said, in a wide range of industries. They work in knitted and woven textiles, for clothing and soft goods and upholstery products and home furnishings, bedspreads and sheets and towels. And they also work with, rugs and carpets, and prints for wallpapers and paper goods and flooring and tile, and even, the interiors of interiors of cars. So these are some of the things that textile colorists will do. Okay, so what are the responsibilities of a colorist? Are they are vast in many ways. The other two careers we've talked about, so designers and directors, can't do their job without the colorist. So the colorist has a whole host of duties. I only listed a few on the screen, but I'm gonna give you a lot more. So they really they interact with customers, right? And their customers are apparel manufacturers. And the designer. So they interact with those customers to understand their needs and interpret their ideas accurately, right? They collaborate with, buying and marketing departments and those technical designers, those technical staff members, as well as other design colleagues, right? They have a great understanding of how textiles will be used, and what properties the textiles will need to have in order to maintain functionality, and how the addition of these dyes, colors, patterns, these surface treatments, will affect those properties. So, again, they conduct research for ideas and inspiration. They look to the past. There actually are archival libraries of patterns and prints, and techniques. So they do that, and sometimes they get their inspiration from, you know, landscape or architecture, or kid storybooks, or it could be anywhere, the sunset, right? All those things are things that they draw inspiration from. So They also, they experiment with texture and pattern as it relates to color. They, produce designs and sketches and samples, present them to customers. Again, they use our good old friend CAD to produce the designs. They check and approve samples. They work on strict deadlines, and they have to stay within those deadlines. They have to work also within a budget. They have to keep up to date with, population trends, and shifts. So, right now we're going to a shift where the two biggest populations are the oldest generation, right, those boomers, and the youngest generation. So as these populations shift, what we buy shifts, right, and those patterns shift. Literally, the patterns of the fabrics do shift, right? And of course, they, attend trade and fashion shows to determine, again, to gain some inspiration. So, you know, um, colorists are in all of the jobs that we've seen so far, colorist is by far the most important, because all the other jobs can't exist without this position. Okay, so here are the qualifications. They've been the same. They've pretty much been the same, for everyone in the textile world. But again, bachelor's degree in textile, visual arts, or graphic design. Fashion design, of course, is included in that mix. But really, textile degree in textiles is going to be the most lucrative for you, or graphic design. Um, you know, um, in terms of experience, entry level positions, are a starting place, but just that technical experience that you gain in the workplace and advancing your CAD skills will assist you in moving up the career ladder. In terms of personal characteristics, again, you have to have great computer skills and be flexible, have a strong visual sense of color, texture, and pattern, a creative personality, and just an understanding of how textiles are produced, right? So how they're produced, and again, the knowing of the synthetic versus natural fibers, like what those two things are going to do. Um, and then having an understanding, a practical understanding of the skills of, sewing, knitting, weaving, and embroidery are really important as well. Not to mention, as always, understanding who the target customer is for the end use. So whoever the end use customer is really important. Challenge wise, you just have to be able to have that crystal ball and be able to interpret trends, um, designated by the designer. So in this terms, the customer is the designer or the manufacturer. You have to be able to understand what those trends are going to be, and sometimes converting the words and the ideas, and the mindset of a designer into a fabric. It can be difficult, right? Turning someone's vision into their vision, right, without them actually doing it. So you have to work through that process. So again, they have to be aware of the technical requirements for fabric development, and the printing requirements, the durability, and the finishes that will happen, and really just that ability, along with everything in fashion, the ability to work under pressure, meet quick deadlines, and maintain your budget. Next is a textile technician, and they do one or two things. They either supervise the production facilities, if the production facilities is owned by the end user, so by the manufacturer, or they oversee production if the production is done by a contractor. So basically, if I go back to Ralph, when the line Lauren came out, which was a moderate women's line, it was actually, the production was done by the Jones New York Company. So there was a textile technician that oversaw the production of the prints there. Whereas anything that we did on our side, in the outlet division, was taken care of. We had an in-house textile technician who was responsible for making sure our prints were recolored and that they were printed correctly in the colors that we had chosen. So, and this person could work abroad, or they could work here in the United States. We did have we have production facilities overseas. So it was somebody that we had to schedule our meetings with because the time zone was never the same. So they were usually up at 3 o'clock in the morning to have a conversation with us. But if a textile company does, you know, their own manufacturing, then that technician is responsible for the smooth running of that production to maximize the production. So some of the duties of this job is to oversee the routine maintenance of equipment. Actually, they don't oversee. They manage the process of somebody else overseeing. They check performance levels of equipment. They carry out regular checks on production, just making sure there's spot checking to make sure there's no difficulties, and if there are difficulties, to stop them in them as early on as possible. And in a large textile factory, that technician may specialize in one of those areas I just mentioned, but they will oversee the whole facility. So oftentimes in a smaller company, their duties are more wide ranging. But technicians, because production is generally done in either 8, 12, or 24-hour shifts, there may be multiple technicians, multiple textile technicians working in a factory. Okay. So the qualifications for this is a bachelor's degree in textile technology. Yes, that does exist. Or textile production, textiles, computer science, sometimes industrial technology, are degrees that folks get that go into this. It really is one of the more specialized areas in fashion. Experience is usually they start in a technical design position and work their way up, but oftentimes they work in specific types of textiles. So, they'll work specifically in knitting, or weaving, or in printing. And then those personal characteristics are really just a high level of technical knowledge and computer skills, um, you know, um, just practical problem solving skills, a thorough understanding of the applications and usage of different methods on the specific textile that they are developing. Of course, there's challenges as always, and oftentimes the challenges that are presented are, um, you know, anticipating those continually changing processes and deadlines, and communicating that problem solving skills to the people that they manage, oversee, and that they work with. And another really special, specific, kind of niche job in the fashion industry is a textile engineer. And merging textiles with technology to create new products is really important. And we talked about some of the technology, some of the advancements in textiles of the 21st century. So, for instance, instead of something being just wrinkle resistant, fabrics really have become wrinkle free through processes that have happened. And a textile engineer is the one that came up with this, right? So the innovative use of chemicals or finishes, or um, that help the fabric have the textile have more end uses and more you know aesthetics, or more comfortability, or more less abrasion. All of those things are what textile engineers do. I grew up in a time where everything that you own that was cotton had to be ironed with starch, right? Including denim, right? So you had to iron denim. You just couldn't put denim in the dryer and it come out unwrinkled. We used to have to iron everything. So now there are all these processes and finishes that go on top of garments that prevent them from wrinkling or staining. Um, Really important. So, materials have been developed that change color with body temperatures, or that wick the sweat away from your body, or that trap the heat in if it's a cold area, or sends the heat out if it's hot. So those are all the things that a textile engineer does. They create those new products. Textile engineers, sometimes they work independently, but sometimes they work with designers to determine how designs can be applied to a fabric, so that it increases either durability or washability or color fastness. So a person in this position does have a background in textile science, but often they have some, chemistry, science, manufacturing, textile analysis in their background as well. With all that said, so with all the previous jobs that we've talked about, director, designer, engineer, technician, colorist, there has to be somebody that sells this stuff, right? That sells this stuff. So the account executive, sometimes they're known as, sales or manufacturer's representative. They sell and manage to account. So oftentimes that's why you see the same prints over and over. So you will see, Zara and Anthropologie and Forever 21 and Macy's have similar prints because the account executives sell across different manufacturers, and they're responsible for the sales of textiles, usually for a specific uh, territory or for specific classification of garments. So their goal is to build and maintain relationships with the industries or the segments of the industries that they serve to maximize sales for their company. So some of the career challenges for account executives is really, their salary is often paid on commission or a quota or a combination. They are a sales force, so they have to have a strong background in sales. They generally have a bachelor's degree in sometimes in first fashion merchandising, but usually in business administration or marketing. They have some experience in retail and wholesale selling, and they just have a strong understanding of accounting and personal selling, effective sales techniques, and good communication skills, and follow up and networking, which is really important as an account executive. So where do you get to start, right, in the industry? And you probably know this logo on the side, Cotton Incorporated. Cotton Incorporated, it was created as a not-for-profit corporation in 1966 as part of the Cotton Research and Promotion Act. And it provides fabric, color, trend forecasting information for textile manufacturers and apparel producers, designers, and retailers. And it's funded by the U.S. cotton growers and importers of cotton and cotton textile products. And what they do is they offer textile technical services, fiber development and dyeing and finishing and cotton quality management. So that could be the type of company that you would begin your career with. So there are large companies that employ textile personnel, designers and library, archival, resource room management. Many of these companies are usually in New York and LA, right? Sometimes there's satellite offices in, Dallas, Atlanta, and Las Vegas, which are some of the more minor fashion markets. But eight of the top textile firms are in 8 of the top 10 are in New York and LA. So in addition to Cotton Incorporated, there are folks like, Woolmark, which is the Australian wool services company, the Fur Council of Canada, the Mohair Council. So these are more fiber specific councils that employ textile creative directors and also the DuPont company. We talked about DuPont. You heard a lot about DuPont when we talked about synthetic fibers. They developed 2 of the 4 that we discussed. So these are some of the private companies that hire textile creative directors and technicians and colorists, in addition to the designers that do their own in-house production, as well as textile manufacturing companies, many of which have left the United States and moved to emerging economies. So now you have a good understanding of the careers in textile production. And of all the careers that we've talked about and of the careers that we're going to talk about going forward, these definitely are the most technical. I mean, look at what the names of some of the jobs are: engineer and technician, um, you know, colorist, right? So these are some of the most specialized jobs in the textile world, in the fashion world, and often even the requirements to gain these positions are much different. Traditionally we've seen, a degree in fashion merchandising design, and these are much more specific. So a degree in textile development or textile production or graphic design or visual arts are really important for these jobs. So hopefully you have a good groundwork for these. And in the next part of the lecture, we're gonna get to meet some people that do these jobs.